Hey, I'm Robert Martinez, the Apartment Rockstar, and I want you to check out the RE Social Podcast.
You're listening to the RE Social Podcast with your hosts, Andrew and Vince from OnV Invest. For more information, go to onvinvest.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of RE Social Podcast. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Robert Martinez from Rockstar Capital. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Hey, what's up, guys? How are you? Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We're recording this between Christmas and New Year's. And super excited to have Robert on here. Robert, so if you can get like 90 seconds to kind of give a little intro of yourself. I know all about you, but people who don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Robert Martinez. Today, I own a company called Rockstar Capital, but 15 years ago, just like everybody else, I went to school, got good grades because that's what mom and dad said to do. Went off, have a degree from Texas A&M engineering, and went out for the next 10 years to be like everybody else. And after 10 years of corporate America, I realized that every time you want to make here, they want to bring you down here. And that happened a few too many times for me. I found I need to do something else. I discovered a real estate club on business radio. I paid $10,000 for mentorship in that club. That was in January of 2007. And here we are today. I've run over 8,000 apartment units. I currently have 4,850 in my portfolio, roughly worth just under $700 million. My management company, Rockstar Capital, has earned 19 City State National Apartment Association awards. I'm a two-time National Owner of the Year. I have raised 180 million of private equity. I've returned 130 million of that money back. And man, I'm just excited to be here, man. It's been a great couple of years, and we're ready for 23.
That's one hell of an intro.
That's a resume.
I know. It's crazy. We have 7 million and he has 700 million. You know what? I'm going to switch off the show right now.
Well, that's how you grow, though. You grow from watching other people, man. Don't do that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just kidding. So, Robert, can you tell us how you shifted from that mindset from the employee to actually going to an entrepreneur route?
I just remember them messing with my commission plan. I'm a sales guy, and I want to get paid for what I kill, and I want to be compensated. I take care of everybody else in the company. I want to get compensated for what we agree to. And when you change the agreement on what we agree to, it upsets me. And that happened 3 times in that corporate life, and it pushed me out the door. I make sure I try to honor all my commitments, because I don't like being taken advantage of. So if I say you're going to make this amount and this is your bonus potential or this is your commission, I'm going to honor that because I want you to make the most you can. Yeah. And so that upset me. So I learned that lesson. And then I realized I didn't have control of my financial future. My boss did. And it's because I only had one stream of income. And so I encourage my guys, like my social team is in here, and most of them have separate streams of income beyond this one. And I think that's important. Yep. That's what helps them grow. Because I think everybody should be an entrepreneur. Everybody should have multiple streams of income. And so when I discovered that, I wanted to find that. And at first I thought I was gonna keep my day job and then maybe go buy a rent house or go buy a laundromat or something like that. And when I joined the real estate club, it introduced to me multifamily investing. So I was able to skip single family investing because I was a little further down the map. I had already a net worth of $800,000 back at that time. And so I had about half of that was in cash. So most of that was in cash, actually. And so I had some money to deploy. My ex-wife and I were commissioned sales guys. So we put our money, but our word is our bond. And when that gets broken and you lose faith and trust, just like in any kind of personal relationship, you make changes. And that's how I stumbled into that real estate club. And it was the best decision of my life. I'm living proof of where they say when one door closes, another one opens up. It's happened throughout my entire life. I credit God to that. A little hard work as well, but definitely have God's favor on that. And I'm blessed for that.
Did you know about investments back then, Robert, while you were doing the job?
It's funny. The only real estate my parents owned was our house that we grew up in. 1980, 1,400 square foot ranch style house down in McAllen, Texas, down in the valley. My dad worked at Whataburger, which is a fast food company here in Texas, for 40 years. My mother worked for Levi's until that plant was shut down, and then later worked for the school district when she got retrained because of NAFTA. And so, no, there was no real estate background. There was very little investment knowledge. My parents didn't sit there with me at the dinner table and talk to me about stuff. All they did was show me how hard they worked. They never explained to me about trying to find multiple streams of income. They didn't know anything about that because their parents didn't know anything about that. So in today's world, if you're not educated, that's okay. You just got to go find mentorship. You got to go find it. In some cases, you have to pay for it. So I know at the dinner table and in any kind of time my kids get in the car with me, we're constantly talking about life. We're constantly talking about real estate. We're constantly talking about personal relationships, hearing about them. And they know dad does apartment complexes. They see where dad lives. They know that we're successful at it. And I'm trying to educate them so that they do the same things, because I don't want them dependent on one stream of income either. Again, I love my team right here. They're listening. I can talk to you freely. They both, all of them have multiple side jobs. I'm good with that. I wasn't always like that. I had to get to that abundance mentality. I just know we have X amount of time during the day, and I expect them to be working on my stuff because this is what they're here for. And anything you guys do outside of work, that's up to you. It's nothing to do with me. It's just give me my time for what we agreed to on compensation, and we're good. So no, real estate wasn't a part of it. It kind of, I found something and I made it bigger.
Did you have any stocks at that point, or did you not know anything about investing?
No, I mean, I learned what society conditions you to learn, right? What did they tell you to go to school, get good grades, and then invest in your 401k? Those were the mantras, right? And my wife and I, because we made six figures, we were able to max out on our 401k. So we always hit the maximum that they would allow you to put in, which at the time, I mean, this is like 15, 20 years ago now. So I think it was 15,000 a year. Then the company would match up to 3%. But when you go look at what the offerings, you have no idea what you're looking at. So they have to make it simple for you: aggressive, moderate, or conservative. Then they make it even more aggressive. Like they make it more easy. If you're 20, 25 years old, 30 years old, you should be, a proportion of your portfolio should be here, a portion there, a portion over there. They never explain to you how to understand what you're looking at. They just wanted your money. And that was by design by Wall Street. Wall Street wants you to keep feeding money into them, right? I'm convinced that right now, the reason why we have depressed values in the stock market, part of it is because there are so many people that have become entrepreneurs because of mentorship. They're finding it on Google, they're finding it on YouTube, they're finding it on a multiple number of places. So they don't have to go into the matrix and keep doing the same thing over and over again like their parents, and generation after generation. The information is there. And I think kids are really smart. They observe things and they see things, and they don't want, in some cases, they want to duplicate that lifestyle. Other cases, they don't. And so they go on, they get in, they go on and they get that energy, and that they have the energy, to find the information, whether it's from somebody like me who's giving it out for free on social media, on my Instagram channel at Apartment Rockstar, or on the YouTube channel we have, Apartment Rockstar, or they're coming in and they're paying for mentorship. I have people that come in and pay $1,500 for a 15-minute phone call because they want to ask certain questions on whether or not they should go this direction or that direction. Other ones, they want to pay $30,000 for a year's of coaching, where they're getting calls with me, they're getting one-on-one time with me to get that hand-holding. Because it's just fear, right? But what's fear? False evidence appearing real. I could have gone in real estate a few years earlier, but nobody was there to help me. Nobody was there to take the fear away.
I wrote on a couple of things that you mentioned before I wanted to move on. I wanted to ask you, you did mention that you did save $800,000. That's not an ordinary amount. So can you talk a little bit about, like, how was your mindset to actually, you had to save and do all that? That's a lot of discipline, right? To save.
Yeah, well, I think discipline comes obviously within yourself.
Yeah.
But also if you're married. And at that time, I had a wonderful woman. She's a blessing today for my children, and she's a fantastic ex-wife. But we had the philosophy that because we were both sales, I think sales is the biggest game changer. Like I make more money, I was making more money in sales than I ever could have been as an engineer. Being able to sell yourself, being able to present yourself, being able to speak and have that confidence is very important, because people buy from people that they like. That's why I think sales guys always do well. It's important to be social. The guys that aren't social are the ones working in the cubicle. They're the ones in the back with the door closed because they don't want anybody to come in, right? So my wife and I were both commissioned salespeople. We had, believe this or not, she had a $24,000 a year salary, and I had $46,000 when we got started. So we were both living on $70,000 of salary, but we were making both six figures. In her case, she made it quite a bit more. Right? She was well into six figures. So anything that we got, we put straight to the bank. We maxed out our 401k, and we went all that cash into the bank. And so I discovered real estate in 2007. So that would have been year 5 of our marriage. When we got married, she had no debt. I had 30,000 in student loan debt, and we immediately worked to pay that down, living on $70,000. So I think you're right. It's discipline. We bought our house. We did everything on that $70,000 plan. And it wasn't until later when we started getting some more education, realized, wow, we have an ability to change ourselves. So we married well. I mean, I think it's very important in whatever you do. You've seen those memes on social, right? The woman you pick will determine your life. And I think that's 100% true. You've got to get a woman that at that time has the right mindset with you, that wants to grow. I married a saver. She's a saver. She was very, very fickle. I'm the one that likes to spend a little bit. I'm the one that wanted to go do so. She would hold me back. And so you got to balance yourself out, but you got to be with somebody who is financially stable. And you know how you can tell? Look at the family. And I didn't know these things. I wish I could write a book on this. I can tell you now. I go, the children, the offspring will be representatives of their family. My family, they like to spend. They didn't have a lot of money in the bank. They weren't very financially disciplined. There would be bills stacking up there, right? Not because they didn't have the money, this is not organized. Her family had everything paid off. They had no debt. Debt was the devil. They owned all their cars. So it only makes sense that when we got married, she adopted those principles. So for all you guys that are early on in your life and you're dating somebody and you think it's going to be serious, pay attention to who the family is, because that's how they're going to act. They say, oh, make sure you're on the same religious page, make sure you're on the same page, but you got to ask, how do you handle finances? Because that would determine everything.
I think that's the biggest factor when it comes to splitting up and divorce is actually not infidelity, but the financial aspect.
I was about to say that. Yeah, I was about to say that. I think if you don't get the finances in order, none of that else matters. And you're right. Most divorces happen because of finances. That's not why ours happened. Ours happened for some other reasons, but it had to do with the business. It had to do with growth. I wanted more. My issue, because she was such a conservative person, she was like, well, when is enough enough? I don't know. It's never going to be enough. Because it's not about the money anymore. It's about,
Robert, you like to hunt. Let's be honest. You like
I want to hunt. I'm a commission sales guy, right? I want to kill. I want to do the deal. I want to grow. I want to know what a kid from a South Texas border town can do. I want to know, okay, can I break that generational curse? Can I be the one that changes the bloodline? If you asked me when I was growing up how much a lot of money was, I would say $1 million. If you ask my kids, they wouldn't say $1 million. They probably would say $1 billion. Why? Because we use the word billion a lot in our life. We talked about my mentor, Grant Cardone. He's a billionaire. We talk about how I'm almost at $1 billion in real estate owned. So it's different, right? And so I just think that finances is so important in home. And you got to have a spouse that shares the same work ethic, that wants to work. And the thing I didn't mention is that in the beginning, we didn't even know we were going to have kids. My ex-wife wanted to work. She was a very smart individual, probably the smartest woman that I know. And she wanted to have 2 incomes. And that's how we got the debt paid off. A lot of guys, they marry and the wife stays home. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like you miss those early years of foundation building. We got the $800K in net worth with, I think 500 of it was probably in cash because we both worked. Now today, she doesn't have to work. Would you want to work in the beginning and stay home, or do you want to stay home? Because I think now she's happy. Now she's a teacher at the kids' private school, making $30,000 a year. She doesn't need that. It's just pocket change for her for what she makes off of our multifamily investments that we share.
That's so fascinating to me because I, as a real estate agent and as a real estate investor with Vince now for over 5 years, we've ran into a lot of real estate agents who are just crushing it, high commissions, driving the Mercedes, all the flash, the watch. And then when you ask them what they own in terms of investments, just in stocks, even just having an asset in general, they kind of just like, well, and they kind of will rattle off some answer, and you realize that they have nothing. And it's because they're spending it on the fur coats and so what do you think is the difference between you guys, you and now your ex-wife who you partnered up with, and you guys were high commission earning people? How'd you not fall into that trap of just spend it all, flash for the Joneses, and keep working for the rest of your life? What do you think?
I think it was 2 pieces. I think because I did marry somebody who was very conservative in her fiscal views. She wasn't going to spend what we didn't make. As I said, her family had no debts. My family had debt. we would have continued that curse if I had married someone just like that. I married somebody who she was from the Southeast, grew up on a farm, very farm strong, and you got to fix it yourself kind of thing. You don't hire a repairman, but you don't have debt either. Like everything that she owned had no debt. That's why I had debt coming into our marriage of 30,000, a student loan, and she had nothing, not even her car. So we got that paid off. Then as a salesperson, we each got company cars. So I didn't have to worry about, oh, I got to look good, look like I'm making a lot of money so I got to get a Mercedes. I sold engineered equipment. I sold ship channel stuff. I'm dealing with guys that don't drive Mercedes. I don't have to sell a $3 million house. I'm selling a $3 million piece of equipment. And I show up in a truck, or I show up in an SUV, or I show up I remember back then my car was a Dodge. I had a Dodge Intrepid, and she had a Toyota Camry.
Those are nice cars.
Yeah. But that was the expected cars, right?
Right.
That's what all the sales guys drove. Why would I take on? See, we were fiscal responsible. Why would I take on a $500-$600 payment when my company will give me a car for free?
Right.
So we had no car payments. All we had, our first real payments didn't come until we had children. When we had childcare payments, and that was like $400 or $500 a month.
Wow. So, but how'd you decide to save all this money instead of spend it, and then turn that into a huge investment, and now has obviously catapulted you into a whole different level?
Well, like I said, she was fiscally responsible, you know.
So you give all the credit to your.
I give her a lot, yeah, because I didn't have the fiscal responsibility. I mean, even today, right? Like she's not with me anymore, so I don't have that person that pulled me back. So yeah, I drive a G-Wagon. Yeah, I drive a Bentley. She drives an Infiniti, Q80 SUV.
Right.
You've been hanging out with GC too much, man. That's what it is.
Well, but I also have $700 million in real estate.
Right.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. Right. So it's like the other thing too is that I'm also more aggressive. So I wanted more. I pushed myself. Remember the whole, if you want it, when is enough? So, but it's nice to have that person to pull you back.
Sure.
So I give her credit for, making sure that we had goals. Our goal was to get to $1 million of cash. Nice. And that would have continued. We would have been fine. Right now, if we had never discovered real estate, we would both have been retired by 50. And we would have had huge 401ks, probably $5, $6, $7 million minimum. I had a lot of money, probably had $5, $6 million in cash, and that's it. If I had to guess, I don't think we would have hit 10 or anything like that. But in that time, whatever I gave up in the divorce, right, I've exponentially increased it because I grew. And so that early seed money definitely came from her being fiscally responsible. So again, I want to echo the message of like, who you marry is very important. You don't have to marry a rich woman because she wasn't rich.
Yeah. But
she was fiscally responsible.
Yeah. And I would even add that who you partner with or who you hire or anyone you bring into your life, I think is extremely valuable. Obviously that significant other is the most because you're around them the most. So that's huge. Yeah.
So I give her a ton of credit, but for starting us, and I give myself the credit for pushing us, for creating what we have today. She doesn't have to work today. My kids go to a really good private school that I pay for. We each have great lives. So it's like it came from the real estate. It came from having that seed money in the beginning. Now, if you don't have that seed money, then you do rent houses first. Maybe wholesaling first, you can create it, right? And then get into owning and buying the real estate and holding it, taking the equity out, doing it again. And then you get to the point to where you upgrade on the Monopoly board from the houses to Monopoly. To the hotels, from the greenhouses to the red hotels. And then at some point you're buying 5 units or more and you got multifamily. I just was able to skip that early stage because we were fiscally responsible.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always tell people that you need to have an active income and then passive income, but active income could pay for all the assets. It's something that GC says always, right? It's like you want to use the money from the cash flow. I wanted to go back to your timeline so that we know like how you got here. So you had like a bunch of money in the bank. What made you go to the real estate event and what made you drop the 10K? 10K was probably not a lot of money for you, so you just dropped it.
No, absolutely it was. I mean, the check before that was the biggest, was the down payment on our house, which was, I think we put $15,000 down on a house. So $10,000 in December of 2006 was a lot of money. I walked into that club and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be the single family king when I walked into there on that Saturday. because it was a $500 boot camp. And I walked in Sunday, and I went home and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna join this club. I think this is it. I want to write $10,000." We had never done that. Was so spacey to write $10,000. It was like a da 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 da. Like it was like a pitch, and I'd never seen it before, and I was taken because I'm the risk taker. She wasn't. So she goes, "No, let me come back with you on Sunday. I'll come back with you on Sunday. Let me see what this is about." And Sunday was multifamily. I had no idea that I would ever think that I could do multifamily. And then when I saw the numbers and I learned the magic formula, I learned about valuation, how you can force appreciation. And she was there with me because she was a no. She's a conservative no. Show me in writing. Show me how this works. She actually got it. Like, okay, all right. If this is what you want to do, I believe in you. And we just went off to the races. We just kept going and growing and growing.
So, Robert, I wanted to ask you, so '07, January, you go to the boot camp, you buy one deal in December, and then in April, you quit. I mean, how much, can you give us some numbers? Like, what are you making, like millions by then?
No, man, not even,
Yeah.
man. It's funny you said that. I'm glad you said that because remember, we only had one deal. We bought a deal in December of '07.
Mhm.
My partner had another deal that I was managing, but he and I were 50-50 on the property management company. So I split the fees. I walked into what was essentially $36,000 of annual salary, my cut, right? But I said, you know what? I'm better walking away from this because if I guard the $200,000 investment that I made in December of '07, then I can double that up, which we did in '09. So when I went there, I took a massive pay cut from what I was making to essentially make annualized $36,000. Then we bought another deal in August of '08. It maybe pushed me up to like making $5,000 a month. And then by the time we bought that last deal, which was a bigger deal, it was the 384 units in Thanksgiving of '08. Now I went up to $7,000, which still isn't a lot of money,
Are you
right?
talking about
But
just management fees, or is
yeah,
this include your
my
split?
cut of the management fee, right? What I got paid at the end of every month, right? So I had to learn to live on one check that came once a month, not as an employee every 2 weeks. And then at this point, I had 200,000 in the first investment. I had 200,000 in the August investment. I had almost 200,000 in the third investment. So I had $600,000 that I'm guarding with my life. So my ex-wife, could handle the rest of our expense because remember, we had a very low fiscal expense model. So we didn't have a lot of heavy bills. But we had $600,000 now of our family's net worth in this. So I took control of it.
Mhm.
And each of those 3 deals refinanced twice in the next 3 years.
By
So
you basically
she became a
using,
believer real quick, huh?
Mhm. So by increasing NOI, decreasing the expenses, increasing the evaluation for
Right, but
multifamily.
why?
Right.
But why? Because I was there.
Mhm.
Because I was there tweaking the needle. I was there
Yeah.
turning this knob and lifting that lever. I was there giving guidance. So
Yeah.
it was okay to walk away from that job if I can turn the 200,000 that first deal into 400,000, which later became overall. I think I would have made 800,000 when the deal finally sold a few years back, and then I did the 200,000 that came right back to me a year later. So now it's worth 400. Eventually, we walked away with 800,000 on that deal. The third deal was about I think I put 150 in, and then a year and a half, a year later, we got the 150 back. Even during the recession, we were doing refinances. So, but that wouldn't have happened had I not been there. I was the difference. I made that happen. It would not have happened if I kept focusing on the pocket change over here. Not to mention, as a full-time real estate investor, I now got a deduction. So everything that my ex-wife made in her, because she was making 300,000-400,000 at one point and more, we got all the taxes back
Because you're a real
of
estate
because of
professional.
depreciation.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
So I mean, I haven't paid taxes since 2008 as the last time. I haven't had to write a check. I shouldn't say I haven't had to write a check since '08.
Yeah.
That's inspiring, man. So
That's yeah.
I'm kind of curious, what's inside of you though? Like what's driving this though? There's something. That's the question I like to ask people. It's like, what's the why?
Have you thought about investing in real estate and taking advantage of all of those benefits without any of the work? That is something that OnV Invest not only provides, but has been providing since its inception. With friends and family, we have built an empire and a system of a wealth generating tool that is giving us and our friends and family that leverage in their life to create true wealth. Go to onvinvest.com for more to see if you qualify? And thanks for listening.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple. I think there's a why and I think there's a purpose. The why is my children, 100%. Like in the very beginning, though, the why was, can a kid from a South Texas border town achieve something? I'm living a dream that I never ever could have imagined. I changed my family tree. When my family got involved, I'm like, wow, I got a chance to really do something for my boys. They're watching how I am every single day. They see
Right.
me on social media. They know Grant and I are friends. They know I go to these events. I'm probably going to take them to an event in January. That's their first GC event, and I'm really excited about that. Where they're going to learn how to speak on stage, because I think that's very important to them, right? So it's them. It's like showing them that I can do this. Yes, it's nice to have the nice things, but it doesn't come unless you put the effort in. I'm giving them a path in the future. They don't have to have the same path that I had. My mom and dad say, go to school and get good grades. I'm like, hey, only go to school if you get into the right schools. Otherwise,
Right.
you're wasting your time, because I can show you how to do what I'm doing.
Right.
You don't need to go to school. You're going there to get the right education. I want them to get a finance, real estate background degree, and I want them to go only to a select few choices of schools. And I said,
Wow.
go to any school you can get into. I will pay for it. And actually, if you hadn't thought about it, I actually going to qualify for financial aid.
Wow. It's true.
Oh, because of how you set up
And
your taxes and
I had
stuff.
that
Yeah.
aha moment earlier this year at the college orientation at the kids' school. I was sitting there with my ex, and I'm like, "Hey, are you still a real estate professional?" Because she has some rent houses. She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "You realize, right, that per the government we make zero? Uh huh. So how do you qualify for financial aid when you're financially challenged, right? Are we financially challenged at zero? I mean, we pay our
Wow.
taxes, but we get it back." And her light bulb went off. 'Cause remember, she's Miss Fiscal Conservative.
Right.
Next thing, my
She's on
kids'
board.
grades shot up, everything, and like there was proper motivation. So that's my first why. My second is my purpose now. I love doing podcasts like this. I love sharing my experience and my knowledge, because I can see the light bulbs go off in you guys.
Oh
I
yeah.
know it motivates you. I know it inspires you. I like to help my investors out. I like doing great jobs for them. Everybody should be like this. Everybody should try to live this kind of life. I'm very fortunate. I just took a risk in a life in at one point in my life. I did have a really strong backstop in my ex-wife. That's why I think marrying right is very important. But it allowed me to take that risk. And I love to give back. I think I have a really big heart, and I try to help everybody around me. I try to help them grow, and I think that's my purpose: is that to help people, to inspire, to leave an impact with people. I have investors where they've been with me since 2010, and their kids went to college basically based off the income they made on the multifamily, or they've retired today. Teachers, doctors, engineers at NASA, all kinds of people that no longer have to work because they got in early with me 8,000 units ago,
That's
and
awesome.
they live right. So I love that. I love sharing that message. I think I'm very genuine. I think people relate to me because I'm just like them. I love Grant, right? I love him. He just brings out like so much enthusiasm and energy. But people can't see themselves being like Grant, because Grant's on a whole other universe by himself. Like his energy level is insane. The fact that he looks the way he does. I mean, I don't look like I look like everybody else. I've got that everyday look, I think, right? And I think I bring it down in what I do to an everyday understanding, very layman. I didn't go to Harvard Business School. I don't have an MBA from a prestigious school. I have an engineering degree. I discovered real estate by accident. And because I can do numbers in my head and I'm a sales guy, so I know how to take care of people, I am where I'm at.
Crazy
Wow.
story, man. That's really cool. I'm trying to get Grant on the podcast. So I've been now hitting up all his friends. So I just had Brad Blazar a couple
Yeah.
of weeks. So now I've had you. So I know once we get all you guys, I could probably get him too.
Yeah.
So,
Contact
I have
Ryan
a-
Secco. That's the guy.
oh yeah,
Actually,
Ryan
no,
Sector.
you need to contact Annie. Annie's the one that takes care of him.
All right, we'll ask you for her. I think I have Annie's email. I think I
Send
emailed
her.
Annie.
She's the one she runs his schedule. If you've ever been in an event, she
Yeah.
follows him. She anticipates.
Annie at grantcardone.com. Done.
That's exactly right. She's the
Yeah.
gatekeeper. I have a gatekeeper. Her name's Ashley.
Yeah.
Everybody,
But I
there's
think
always a gatekeeper.
I hit you up directly on Instagram, right? I think you might have seen my message.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I have a couple of questions I wanted to follow
Yeah.
up to. First is people listening to this, a lot of our listeners, they're making 70 to 120,000 a year. They're like, yeah, bro, it's a great story, Robert. Yeah, you had $800,000 and you guys are killing it. We don't have that kind of money. So how do we start? Like, I don't have 10,000 to drop in an event just this weekend or something like that. So what do you tell these guys to motivate them to get in the game?
Number one, I think you got to be where money's at. You know,
Mhm.
that's like an excuse.
Yeah.
If your kid gets into Harvard and you can't afford to pay for it, but you want them to go, guess what? You'll go get a pizza job, delivering pizza. It
Yeah.
depends. Do you really want to do it, or do you want it to be given to you? If you're in that situation where you just don't have the money, that's okay. You need to still be around. There's plenty of education on YouTube.
Mhm.
And maybe you don't start multifamily. Maybe you start how to do wholesaling. There's so many guys that get started wholesaling and make a lot of money doing that. There's or buying a single family house. I know guys that do syndication right now that have no business doing syndication. They have no formal background, but because they could talk and they've been to these events and they can help somebody else raise capital, all of a sudden now they bird dog for people. They bird dog either in that they find a deal, or they bird dog in the sense that they can find equity. So if you can speak and you can shake hands and kiss babies and smile a lot and get people to like you, you can
Yeah.
do anything. But nothing's going to happen to you just sitting there on your couch
Yeah.
watching this podcast or thinking, "Oh, I don't know how this guy had this." Like, no, dude. My dad worked at Whataburger for 40 years, man. My mom worked at Levi's. It's
Those are
like,
great genes. Those are great genes, man. I want to add on that, Rob. I want to add on that,
yeah.
Robert, for our audience. I think the what you were saying is 100% on, but to really break it down for that question that Vince just asked, which is huge. I think it's about focusing on how you can give value, and specifically focusing how you can give value to somebody who's already killing it, doing what you want to do.
Mhm.
Determining that vision and figuring out, how can I help Robert Martinez? How can I serve him? So that way he shows me just two things that will help change my life forever. So I can have 1% of what he's achieving. And I think that's really what you were getting at. And that's huge. Everyone's got this reverse mentality of like, how can I take, where's my time? Where's my chance? And it's not about that. So
Yeah, I mean, it's about networking, right? Being and knowing people and getting them to know who you are and seeing them. Like, the only reason Grant and I are as close as we are because I go to all the events. He sees me now,
right.
right? So I made important to him, to me, what's important. He's actually said it. He goes, he came to my first mastermind last year out of the
Nice.
blue. I didn't invite him. I didn't pay 100,000. He came and he spoke for like an hour because he was in town for the Astros World Series last year in 2021. And he says, I'm here because this guy is always committed to me. He's here
Love
at
it.
all my events. He shows up. And that's how it is. Just reciprocity. I didn't ask him to come. He actually had texted me that day and said, "Hey, who do you use for private car service?" And I had just booked a car service the week before, so I knew who to send him. He goes, "What are you doing? Are you going to the game?" But I am going to go to the game, but after our mastermind. "Oh, you're doing a mastermind? Tell me about it." "Oh, okay." "Hey, we don't tell anybody to come in, but I might try to make it." Next thing you know, he shows up.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, it's the most amazing thing to see Grant Cardone walk through your front door and
I've
talk
seen the
to
video.
you. See the, yeah, and
I've seen the
and
video.
talk to everybody, and you're
Yeah.
like, and everybody's like freaking out, right? Like, and like, the GC would show up, and he doesn't do that. There aren't that many videos where he just shows up like that. He did it for me,
Right.
and I'm super appreciative, and I've continued to be supportive of him. I want to learn. I'm not. I have abundance mentality. Tell me what I need to pay. I'm going to pay. I'm going to show it, and I'm going to pick something up from it. I mean, I just came back from Miami a week and a half ago from the last event, and I learned so much. And because I'm already in that club, it was a free event for me, but I brought somebody else with me. So there's a ticket. That was $2,500. And then we're both sitting there learning.
Is
And
that
I'm helping people get into the club as well. Like, they're asking me, "Hey, what has the club done for you?" I go, "Well, it changed everything for me. It grew my mindset. I did more acquisitions in the last 18 months than I did in the previous 10 years
I
in
want-
terms of acquisition value. And that
Mhm.
never would have happened if I hadn't been in that club, because I was around a bigger mindset. So they come to me, and so I help them sell memberships. You don't think he knows all those things? Of course he does. So it strengthens my bond, right? So it goes back to your point. Where is the value? What does somebody else need?
Yep.
They, you just got to figure it out.
To this day, the big players like you guys that we've ever had a chance to talk to, all share that have that enthusiasm, and then they also have that, just like, they're just so generous with their time. Their time is precious, and yet they're still willing to go the extra mile and show up to events and contribute value, because they understand implicitly that's where success comes from.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I'm in town. I see you on social. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" What?
Yeah.
Bro, I can buy my own Starbucks, man. So you're
Right.
saying that that hour and a half, 2 hours you may want with me is worth $5? No, that's not how it works. The way this works, right, as podcast is because you're putting me now in others. I'm getting on your stage,
Yep.
right? You're giving me a chance for people to see who I am. And that through hopefully through the reciprocity, maybe somebody says, hey, they want to invest in me, or maybe they want to do private consulting or coaching with me, right? So there's value here. You get great content, and I get on somebody's stage, right? So maybe that one person sees me, and that's how that works, right? You got to create value.
So you
Uh-huh.
would say, Robert, I've been trying to do the things you've been talking. So I went to Jake and Gino's. I pay a little bit extra, hang out in the rooms. I met your
Oh
guy.
yeah, always,
Jorge.
always. May I interrupt you? Always get the VIP ticket.
Yeah, always.
You
Yeah.
are there to do two things: to be seen by the organizers and to network. The money in the room is in the front of the room, not in the back of the room. Do not show up and limp. It is a completely different experience sitting near the front than it is sitting in the hard chairs in the back. You are
Yeah.
disengaged, and you're with people that don't have the money that you need to be around. Like I was at the Cardone event, right? And I was sitting second row, and the guy in front of me had paid $20,000 for the seat in front of me. And he was there talking. He wanted to be around that. I was that guy once where I paid 20,000. I did that 2 or 3 events in a row. And they're like, okay, well, I don't need the VIP access, right? I'm already there. I'm already the known name in the room. I'll just sit here in the second row and get the same view, right? But they want to be around players like me. They want to be next to Grant. You don't think Grant knows who those guys were that just dropped down 20 G's? Of course he does. And he had a private lunch with them 2 days in a row. So there's benefits to that, right? So when you go to these conferences, you're there to be seen by the organizer to get those private questions. Like on our event, right, that we're having in January 25th to 27th, we have VIP. So there's VIP seating at the event. There's going to be a private dinner at my house, a private dinner at the second night somewhere else. And you're now going to get in my phone, and you're probably going to get my phone number, right? And so you create that. You're paying for that accessibility. So yeah, man, don't ever sleep on these events, man. There's a reason for it. Always get
Yeah.
that big ticket.
I'm going to this event with Jason Hartman. I'm pretty sure you know who he is.
Yep.
And Kenny, your guy, Kenny McElroy, Tom.
Okay,
Blue, right?
McElroy, yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, you know him. And then I paid extra, a couple grand, but I'm going to be having dinners with these guys for the whole weekend. Totally worth it.
That's fantastic. You see, it's so
Mhm.
worth it. They're going to know who you are.
Yeah.
Now you got to have your questions right, so you get the most value, and see how you can continue the relationship past the initial introduction.
How would
You
you?
bought
what-
yourself an introduction. What's that?
Yeah, so that's my next question, right? How would you suggest someone like myself or Drew or whoever's listening, we get to those rooms? Yeah, we got 30, 40 houses, whatever. It's a small level players compared to you guys. How do we add value to your structure, your business? We have this podcast, it's a little bit value, but we want to be more engaged with you guys. What would you suggest?
I don't know. I think the podcast was a really good opener. I think you should offer
for sure.
McElroy and those guys a chance to get on podcasts too, because if they're savvy, they're going to realize, hey, I want to get in other people's stages too.
Yeah. I had Jason on the podcast last week.
Good.
Yeah.
And then I think you would go and figure out, look around, offer some advice, find out who they're connected to, find out who Ashley is, find out who Natalie is, see what
Yeah.
you can do, find out something important to me and make it important to you. And then continue that relationship, because it takes time. You don't know immediately. You got to get on the phone. You got to get in front of them, right? When people send nice gifts to people, you're like, oh, wow, that's really nice. It makes me want to pick up the phone and say thank you. Or schedule a time for a meeting. And next thing you know, you get talking enough time, you find something out that you weren't aware of before. This podcast, right? I'm sharing different aspects because you asked the question of how I truly got started. No one's ever asked me, how did you amass $800,000? That's the first time in a podcast somebody asked me that. So I was able to go back and break it down. I've never talked about my ex-wife as much as I have on this one, because I wanted you to understand the importance of marrying the right person. That all started from that question. So you just got to find the right domino that allows a conversation to continue to progress.
Yeah, it's a great privilege for us to have this opportunity, have these podcasts and have guys like you, which we will have no shot at getting a one-on-one conversation, which is We really value that. We really appreciate the time. My one of my final questions is, and I got to go in like 10 minutes, is I usually like to ask a question which is very specific to our business, but also people could use it, right? So for our business is so Drew and I have, $7 million. We have a few doors and we are scaling. So we went from 2 doors and during the pandemic to 40 doors, right? And
Wow, that's good.
it's a lot. So I'm figuring out ways to make the cash flow situation better because our cash flow sucks. So we're trying to do that by installing more short-term rentals and mid-term rentals and stuff. What would you suggest for someone with this size to go to the next level, which would be hundreds of units? Is it go to the path that I know very well? Like it's buying 2 to 3 unit properties in California is like $700,000-$800,000 in cash flow, or that I'm involved with the 44 unit now with Jake and Gina. We just closed because I go to this mentorship stuff and I have a very small percentage in it, but that's another style. But the one I do with Drew, we have like huge equity position. We're talking 30, 40, 50% of like these $1 million deals. What would you suggest for us to go towards?
All right. So the number one thing I would do right now for guys like you guys got 40 plus units, right? Is that I would sell the 40 units on social and wherever as much as you can. Come up with your 30-second elevator pitch and be talking about it all the time on social. Go to deals with the deals in the background. Talk about, hey, my name is Robert Martinez. I've been involved in real estate since 2007. In that time, I've grown 8,000 units. I've returned 130 million back to my investors, and I found my next money winner. This one, I'm putting 500,000 into my own, and I would love to partner with you. We're looking at a 3x return in the next 10 years. Very simple, cut and dry, right? Then you want to just keep communicating with your investor base and social. Tell them what you're seeing in the market. There is a crash. It's already here. It's going to get worse for a lot of guys because you only lose money in real estate when you run out of time or money. Right? And that's going to happen for a lot of people right now. And if it's not now, to be in 2025 or 2024, because this is about a 2-year cycle. So deals are going to have the same rent number, same NOI, but they're going to be considered worth less. That's the time to jump in and buy the best location you can. Buy the very best. That's the first thing that's going to rebound after the recession. I've been in a recession back in 08 to 2014, right? The first thing that rebounded was the Class A's. So I would focus on generating your equity base, energizing them, getting them excited with what's going on, and bringing on new equity by sharing your story. You've done something that 99% of the people haven't done. So don't demote it, promote it.
Yeah, man, that's really good advice. That's what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to increase the cash flow. And then we started, just like you said, because I go to all these events, and GC talks about this a lot. It's like you want to buy the property, which is the price now, right? We bought a $40 million mansion in Malibu. We both live in Orange County, California. It's not 40 million, but it's $1 million. So we are starting to buy in areas where we live, but we have to be very smart. We're raising more capital and putting more down and doing like midterm rentals. So that's what you suggest, right? And we started off buying in bad neighborhoods, though. That's where we started.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Drew, do you have any follow-up? I know he's got to go in 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Yeah. I always like to know about, for me, I'm all about taking risks and taking big moves, which is why we've been able to achieve what we've achieved. Coming from, again, me, I'm like a blue collar Kansas. And for me, with what little that I've achieved compared to most of the people we are privileged to interview in this podcast, it came from taking big jumps, big calculated risks. And I say calculated because we educated ourselves. What education did you get? What books, mentorships did you get? How were you consuming information to make that move, to convince your wife at the time to make that big jump with you?
I think it's just really the enthusiasm you have, right, to convince anybody, right? Because somebody's selling somebody in every conversation. And so it's important to make sure that you're versed in your information. I mean, the very first books I read were the Robert Kiyosaki books, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. All those were very Conspiracy of the Rich. Those were all really good primers for me. I'd actually had heard Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was in my early 20s driving home from college. It didn't make any sense to me. So when I joined the real estate club, that was primary reading. So I went back and my business maturity had caught up. And what I was reading made sense to me now, 15 years later. So it's important to make sure that you read those kind of books. I think the biggest benefit for me was just being in a real estate club where you're around other people that all have the same mindset. It fuels you. Showing up to those live events, If they have a bus road trip to member properties, going there, going to all the case studies, getting confidence is everything, right? The confidence is so key. If you don't have the confidence to do it, you won't do it. You know, when you know that you've seen Natalie buy a piece of real estate, you're like, well, wow. I remember Natalie when she was just a member. Now she owns 2 deals. Now she raised $10 million. Wow, I just went to her property. It makes it very achievable for you. And that's what Grant did for me at my level. It's like, wow, I remember when I sat with Grant in 2018 in my initial meeting with my 2 boys, that's on Instagram, on YouTube as well. I had around 270 million and he had around 600 million. And in 4 years, he's now at, like, I don't know how many billions he got now, right? 5 billion.
It's
And I'm
fine.
and I'm at 700. So what's the difference? He just thought bigger. And so when I realized that a couple years ago, that's what fueled my 18-month growth. Yeah, I did 200 and I don't know what it was, 240 million in acquisition value in 18 months. It was more than what I had done the previous 10 years. I mean, I grew my business by 60%, you know,
That's
and it's
crazy.
just or being around people that think bigger than you. So yeah, books are great. I think they're great primers, but it's more the communication, right? Because a book's not going to keep you motivated. It's going to be accountability to yourself and people that you're accountable with. You know, and I know when I go to these GC events or when I talk to GC, I want to show that I've done something. I want to show that I've moved it. I want to move my own needle. And you got to find whatever motivates you to move that needle. For me, it's not books. I can't even see anymore, man. My eyes are getting old. So I'm gonna have to be in person, probably in the front row, so I can see somebody and get inspired by it and then take action.
Love it.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for your time. Robert, if there's people want to reach you, how do they reach you?
Hey, thank you so much. I had a fantastic time. And to anybody watching, if we have a ton of free content, please follow me at Apartment Rockstar on Instagram or on my YouTube channel.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for your time, man. I hope to see you next year sometime in one of the GC events or something. I'll get some
Love to
tickets.
see you there, man. Or you can come to our mastermind next month. I'm going to be here.
Oh, where? In Texas?
Here in Houston, yeah, at our office, and then also offsite as well. January 25th to 27th. I'll have Natalie send you the link, and if you guys have time to come, I'd love to have you guys.
Okay, cool, man. I'll be at the Jason Hartman event at that time, but
Okay.
we'll figure it out. Thank you, sir.
No
Thank you.
problem. Thank you, man.
I don't know about you, but I definitely like to see 5-star reviews on any service or any product before I purchase. Please take a second to leave us a 5-star review, whether you're listening to it on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, or whatever platform. Take a second, goes a long way, helps us a lot to grow the channel, and thanks for listening.